Hey YouTube, it's me, Big Boy Snatch on TV, aka Wakanda Snatchy One, because I got playing around. As you can tell by the title of the thumbnail of the video, this is my AEW Dynamite review and highlights. So if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more every week wrestling content I do on the channel. Go check out my WWE NXT review and highlights, and follow all my social media down below in the description. Now let's get started. Now AEW Dynamite, I thought it was a good show for what it was, and I give the show a 7.5 out of 10. It says AEW Dynamite was live from Las Vegas, Nevada, Palms Casino and Resort. We kick off the show with Power before Will Ospreay makes his way out to the ring with a microphone. He asks the Las Vegas crowd if anyone lost a lot of money, encouraging them to go win it back before talking about Grand Slam in Mexico last week. He's grateful for the love of the fans last week, especially after finding out that his grandfather passed away. So, RP to Will Ospreay's grandfather, man. That was just sad. All right. He addresses the emotions he had about this before saying his grandfather would ask him why he's crying and do a flip. Will Ospreay talks about pushing past this hurdle and doing his best for the fans before turning his attention to Kenny Omega. He addresses the fact Kenny Omega wasn't in Mexico last week but is backstage tonight, calling him out for a chat, but out comes Don Callis. He talks about Las Vegas being the birthplace of AEW, though he admitted he wasn't at the first show. He then gives us a history lesson, looking back at how he rise up Kenny Omega to be the best, and how that led to Kenny Omega on a big run as AEW World Champion until Kenny Omega thought he could do it without Don Callis. He also brings up Kenny Omega beating Will Ospreay in Japan. When Don Callis was still in Kenny Omega's corner, he suggests there's a theme around all of that. He says that Will Ospreay thinks the road to All In is paved in gold, but actually it's paved in blood, Will Ospreay's blood. At this point, RPG Vice side into the ring to blindside Will Ospreay. Mark Davis joins them in beating Will Ospreay down until Kenny Omega comes out for the save. Will Ospreay will eventually, as he takes his time coming down the ramp with a steel pipe, he enters the ring and clears the Don Callis family out of it before turning his attention to Will Ospreay laying in the corner. He forgets attack Will Ospreay before talking about what he told Will Ospreay about trusting the likes of Don Callis and Jon Moxley. They have a lot of other issues in background as well, including a man MJF calling himself the real world champion, stating that the man he sees now is he's not the man he wants to face at Wembley Stadium. He offers Will Ospreay a hand in getting to his feet, but says this is the last time he's offering Will Ospreay any help. Will Ospreay responds by thanking Kenny Omega by saying he doesn't need Kenny Omega's help. With that, Will Ospreay music hits as he leaves the ring. Kenny Omega poses for the crowd as his music hits, while commentary hypes up the Continental Challenge Cup. They go over the rules of the tournament before he takes a look back at the first round matches from AEW Collision last Saturday. From there, they hype up the tourney matches for tonight, as well as the rest of the lineup. Up next, we find out who enters the Casino Gauntlet at number 2, when MJF, Nick Wayne, and Speedball Mike Bailey face off. We get a video looking back at MJF return last week before heading to ringside, where the former and world champion makes his way to the ring. He makes a beeline for Justin Marvis, who refers to MJF as the one true champion. Out next is Nick Wayne, followed by Speedball Mike Bailey, as we get this opening underway. For the number 2 spot in the Casino Gauntlet at All In, London. MJF versus Nick Wayne versus Speedball Mike Bailey. This was a good triple threat match, but Speedball Mike Bailey should have had won. That's just my opinion. MJF immediately leaves the ring, joining commentary to run Nick Wayne and Speedball Mike Bailey down. Speedball and Nick Wayne go at each other, trading offense to stand still. Nick Wayne hits the ropes, but gets taken down by Mike Bailey, who sends him out of the ring, only for Nick Wayne to block a dive attempt and send Speedball crashing to the floor. Nick Wayne hits the ropes for a dive of his own, bringing Speedball back into the ring. But Bailey catches him with a foot to the face, sending him down before landing a moonsault off the ropes until Nick Wayne MJF goes back into the ring, hitting the ropes over and over before simply flipping off the crowd. Bailey comes in from the top turnbuckle, not hitting MJF's request to stop before taking him to the outside with a massive dropkick. Nick Wayne comes in after Speedball with MJF giving a few cheap shots. He gives Nick Wayne some pointers as both men lay into Bailey before MJF goes for the cover for a near fall. Nick Wayne breaks it up, arguing with MJF, who says that Nick gets to be in the ring with the champ and that should be good enough. Nick Wayne doesn't take well to this, especially when MJF slaps him in the face, only to be sent to the outside. This leads Bailey and Nick Wayne to go back at it, culminating in a backflip double knees from Speedball. Bailey gets to the apron, but it's hung up on the ropes by MJF. Mike Bailey blocks a heat seeker, forcing MJF to the outside, where he catches both opponents with a moonsault as we go to commercial break. Back from commercial break, Bailey is in control as he has MJF down on the mat, going up top for a shooting star press. MJF rolls out of the way for a cover and a near fall, leaving the ring for a breather. As Nick Wayne comes running in, Speedball dispatches of him before going up top for a shooting star press that connects. Covered by Speedball for a 2 count, and Nick Wayne is back on his feet as he catches Speedball Mike Bailey with a kick in a prodigy plex for a near fall. MJF slides into the ring looking to cut Nick Wayne off, but he gets taken by surprise by Nick Wayne. MJF turns it around as he takes Nick Wayne to the mat, but a shooting star press from the rope shows Speedball to break it up. He sends MJF out before setting up Nick Wayne for the Utama weapon. But MJF comes back into the ring, sending Mike Bailey out of the ring before locking in a salt of the earth on Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne taps out and MJF steals a win to enter the Casino Gauntlet at number 2. Alright, that match was good, but Speedball Mike Bailey should have won. The winner by pinfall, number 2 entrant in the Casino Gauntlet, MJF. Let's continue. That was a good triple threat match, but Speedball Mike Bailey should have won. MJF grabs a microphone after the match, promising to leave Wembley with a shot at the title he never lost, and running down Andrade Adil before the latter music to play. But it's just a rude something MJF laughs about before, saying he knows Andrade ain't here because he whooped his, because I believe that Andrade is going to cost MJF at AEW All In London. He's going to cost MJF. He goes on a run down Kenny Omega, and Will Ospreay promise that God won't be there to save them from losing to MJF when the time comes. We cut to the Brawling Birds pub, only to find Divine Dominion standing there inside. Instead, they run down the Birds for seemingly only getting a title shot because it's their home country, and promising to defeat them in front of their country folk. They have a toast to the birds, saying it was a good run before dropping their mugs to the floor and walking off. Backstage, Mick Foley is standing by with the Bang Bang Gang as Jay White addresses facing David Finlay in a Continental Cup tourney match. Jay White talks about the importance of finally setting a score with David Finlay, and the fact the rules will keep the Dogs and Death Riders away. He promised victory tonight. And if you're not down with that, they got two words for you: guns up. So we go to commercial break. We had to ringside as Jay White makes his entrance for the tournament action. Out next is David Finlay with Clark Connors coming out to the stage with him, only to make his exit while we get a post collision promo from David Finlay addressing Space and Jay White at Dynamite before this match gets on the way. Let me take a sip of my water. Let me take a sip of my drink. Alright, so we get the next match. So we get the AEW Continental Challenge Cup first round. Jay White versus David Finlay. And I might as well say, this match right here, this was a good match as well too. Jay White immediately goes out to David Finlay, letting some frustrations over their issues as he sees David Finlay into the barricade. He brings David Finlay back in the ring, landing some hard shots to take David Finlay to the corner. David Finlay turns it around with some shots of his own, less focused on getting a pin and more on inflicting pain on his former friend. This allows Jay White to get back into the match, forcing David Finlay to the apron, but David Finlay goes back after him with a jawbreaker on the top rope. But Jay White is able to swing the momentum back in his favor as he ends up sending David Finlay to the outside, landing a suplex that drops David Finlay onto the apron. He brings David Finlay back into the ring for another suplex. He goes for a cover in a 2. David Finlay is able to retreat to the corner for a breather before taking the switchblade to the mat with a net breaker as we go to an ad break. David Finlay gets sent into the turnbuckles with an exploder by Jay White, who follows with some chops before David Finlay turns it around with a DDT for a near fall. Both men are back on their feet, with David Finlay breaking free of a Blade Runner attempt for a near fall before Jay White counters for a 2 count of his own. David Finlay takes control as he sends Jay White to the corner, but Switchblade catches him with some punches to the head. David Finlay sent to the mat by Jay White, who lands a half suplex on David Finlay, but can't bridge for the pin as he is in pain from the impact. Jay White tries to push past this as he goes after David Finlay, but the Dogs turns it around to jump Jay White to the mat, covered by David Finlay, but Jay White managed to kick out. David Finlay brings Switchblade to his feet, but Jay White fights out of it, setting up for a double underhook powerbomb and a near fall, with David Finlay countering a Blade Runner into a brainbuster across the knee, covered by David Finlay, but it only gets a 2. David Finlay stands Jay White back up for a set of lariats, only for Jay White to counter a brainbuster into a Blade Runner as he picks up the win to advance. The winner by pinfall advancing to the next round, Jay White. This was a good match as well too, but I'm glad Jay White won. Jay White celebrates the win. Commentary hypes up our main event of Jack Perry facing Jon Moxley. That's going to be a good match. But up next, we will hear from the new AEW World Trios Champion and Hangman Adam Page and Brodito. So we go to commercial break. We had to ringside as Tony Schiavone talks about the crowning of new Trios champions at Grand Slam Mexico, welcoming Hangman Adam Page and Brodito to the ring. The crowd pops as the new champs makes their way out, and we get a look at how they won the titles last week as the trios entered the ring. Bandido shows some love to the fans, and Brody King gets a good pop from the crowd before Hangman Adam Page asks if he can speak some Spanish, only for Tony Schiavone. Swerve Strickland music to hit. Out comes the most dangerous man in AEW alongside Prince Nana, who takes the mic to run down Tony Schiavone. He hands the mic to Swerve Strickland, who talks about trauma bonding before addressing three men who have bad blood with him out here celebrating. In fact, he's the man. All three of them have something in common about. He addresses beating Bandido at Double or Nothing and his personal history with Brody King and how the last saw Brody King laying in a pool of his own blood. What's really funny is how this all comes down to the last of these addressing Hangman Page. They were on the same page. Pardon the pun, but while he's gone, Adam goes after the world championship and lost. He asks what Hangman's legacy is going to be now. Is he going to ride off into the sunset? Hangman Page turns this around on Swerve Strickland, saying he's one to talk about results. He's seeing Swerve Strickland do some crazy stuff this past year, but hasn't had much to show for it. This confrontation is cut short by the arrival of the man and the Jay Lethal twist. Well, in the Lethal twist. Ricochet wants to know what Swerve is doing out here anyway, as this is official trios business. 1, 2, 3. Uno, dos, tres. He asks if Prince Nana is going to step back into the ring, as GOA would love to put him down for good. He talks about what Swerve Strickland did to him a while back and how he abandoned GOA, but Ricochet saw their potential and that lead all three of them to a run as World Trio Champion. He says if this was the NFL, they have instant replay to show that Bishop Khan's shoulders weren't down for the 3 count, saying they demand a rematch for their titles. As he tells Swerve Strickland to swerve his on out and get to stepping so they can finish their business. And Swerve Strickland repeatedly obliged. But before he leaves, Swerve Strickland says Brody King may be doing a lot of barking, but Ricochet is the one who say what. That part was funny. This has Ricochet wanted to go after Swerve Strickland, but GOA hold him back as Swerve Strickland heads to the back. Hangman Page offers a rematch to demand right here and now, but Ricochet wants to do this on their time before they leave, or more apparently get to stepping. We take a look back at Mercedes Moné attacking Will Nightingale earlier today doing an interview, and then head back to ringside for our next match as Chris Jericho makes his entrance, followed by Kevin Knight with Don Callis at ringside. He tells the champ to do this for him before leaving, and Kevin Knight goes after Chris Jericho to get this match on the way. Alright. So we get the next match. So we get a TNT Championship match. The Jack Kevin Knight versus defense against Chris Jericho. This was a good match as well, but Chris Jericho should have won. He sends Chris Jericho to the ropes with some strikes, but Chris Jericho fights back with some chops of his own before landing a brainbuster on the Jack. Chris Jericho continues to fight before sending Kevin Knight to the ropes, where Kevin Knight goes for a leg lariat, but Chris Jericho manages to turn it around, forcing the champ to the corner. He lands some punches on Kevin Knight, followed by a hurricanrana that sends the champ to the mat. Kevin Knight gets to his feet, but is quickly sent to the outside where Chris Jericho gets the drop on the champ. He hangs out with his old pal Paul Wright before countering to go after Kevin Knight, who sends his challenger crashing into the barricade before we go to commercial break. Alright. Kevin Knight regains control as he sends Chris Jericho to the mat. He goes for a Lionsault, but takes a pair of knees from the Lionheart himself, who brings Kevin Knight up for some more strikes. He sends him to the ropes. Kevin Knight stops himself and sends the challenger to the ramp for a leaping lariat. He continues to go after Chris Jericho until the challenger sends him onto the ramp, only to be distracted with following Don Callis at ringside. Kevin Knight gets back into the ring and leaps out for a dive, only for Chris Jericho to intercept him. Kevin Knight sends back to the ring as Chris Jericho goes for the walls, but Kevin Knight continues to counters for a near fall. Chris Jericho counters for a two of his own before Kevin Knight tries to sneak a pin with his feet on the ropes, but the referee catches it. Kevin Knight argues with the official. Kevin Knight argues with the official about this, and that allows Chris Jericho to try the same on him for a 2 count. The champ turns it around, sending Chris Jericho to the corner for some punches, but Chris Jericho lands a powerbomb on him for a 2 count. He immediately goes for the walls, but Don Callis climbs onto the apron. Chris Jericho impeccably comes stepping towards the ropes, likely distracted with keeping the hold on to notice Don Callis pulling out a screwdriver and jabs Chris Jericho in the head with it. Now, RB Era should have banned Don Callis, and that's all I gotta say. Kevin Knight goes for the cover, but it's not enough to keep Chris Jericho down. Kevin Knight goes up top for the UFO splash, but drops onto a code breaker for the challenger. Don Callis once again gets on the apron, distracting the ref as Kevin Knight lands a low blow on Chris Jericho by the crash landing for the win. The winner by pinfall and still your TNT champion, the Jet Kevin Knight. That was a good match, but Chris Jericho should have won this match. We head backstage to hear from the Death Riders. Claudio addresses not knowing who he faces in the next round, but says he doesn't care because ultimately we are just fighting ourselves. John Moxley addresses how this tournament could go, saying his own run at champion could come to an end tonight. He asks if Jack Perry is ready, like he and the Death Riders are talking about furniture before scrapping with Wheeler Yuta as we go to commercial break. So we go to commercial break. Via Van is already in the ring for our next match as Chris Stanlatter makes her entrance. We get things on the way. So we get Chris Stanlatter versus Via Van. And this match, right, this was a squash match. Alright. Despite an early onslaught from Chris Stanlatter, Via Van gains control for a near fall on the former women's world champion. She hits another fury of offense, culminating in a moonsault on Chris Stanlatter for another 2 count. But Chris Stanlatter turns it back around for a inverted Wednesday night fever for the win. The winner of the match, Chris Stanlatter. This was a squash match, what it was. Mick Foley comes to the ring for a post-match interview after shilling his new shirt and the fact Noelle is in front row. Alright. It says I read that part. It's in the front row now. with an announcement that next week on Dynamite there will be a 4-way match for the TBS Championship as Maya World defends against Chris Stanlander, Persephone, and Hikaru Shida. I don't want to see Hikaru Shida with the TBS Championship ever again. Anyway, let me continue. Chris Stanlander addresses the other woman in that match before Persephone and Hikaru Shida come out to confront Chris Stanlander. Outcome Thunder Rosa and Maya World for the save, and what a way to transition to our next match as we get things underway. So we get a female world women's champion Persephone and Hikaru Shida versus TBS champion Maya World and female Mexican Nation women's champion Thunder Rosa. This is a tag team match. And this tag team match right here, I ain't even gonna lie to you. This was a okay tag team match. What it was. Myra and Persephone start things off with Persephone taking control before tagging in Hikaru Shida. She lays into the TBS champion until Thunder Rosa gets a tag, looking to turn things around, but to no avail. Hikaru Shida stays in control as she tags in Persephone, who mocks Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa sends Hikaru Shida to the outside before laying in to Persephone. She hits the ropes to fend off Hikaru Shida on the outside, but this allows Persephone to blindside her. She then sends Maya World crashing into the guardrail, mocking the crowd as we go to commercial break. Back from the break, Persephone steps on Thunder Rosa to stay in control. She props the Mexican national champion against the ropes, distracting the referee as Hikaru Shida lands a cheap shot. Tag made as the pair knock Maya World away before looking for a double suplex on Thunder Rosa, who ends up laying them out instead. Tag made to Maya World, who gets the drop on both opponents. She lands a leaping back elbow on each of them before rolling up Thunder Rosa. Persephone charges at her and gets caught in a fallaway slam by the TBS champion, who bridged for a near fall on Hikaru Shida. Hikaru Shida backs up, sending Maya World to the outside, but a blonde tag is made to Thunder Rosa, who gets into it with Hikaru Shida. Hikaru Shida wins the exchange, landing a Falcon Arrow for a 2 count before Maya World breaks it up. Maya World fights off Persephone as well before getting in official tag, where she catches Hikaru Shida with a stunner. Persephone grabs a hold of her, but Hikaru Shida accidentally collides with her partner, allowing Maya World to land a bridging fall away slam for the win. The winner of the match by pinfall, TBS champion Maya World and female Mexican national women's champion Thunder Rosa. This tag team match was I might as well say it was just okay tag team match. The pair celebrate with Chris Stanlander joining them before we cut to some words from Darby Allin. He addresses those asking him about his world title run, saying he has no regrets as he admits to burning the candles at both ends. Kevin Knight has been doing the same with the run as TNT champion, addressing his personal history with Kevin Knight and saying that if he beats him one more time at AEW All in London, when Falls Count Anywhere, he shows exactly to potential that Darby Allin has known about him. That was a pretty cool segment about Darby Allin. Commercial break. Backstage, we hear from Kyle Fletcher. He has 3 titles to defend in 3 countries. So numbers 4 will be in the United Kingdom at Wembley Stadium for All In. Don Collins says that he had a chat with Tony Khan about this match and learned that there is a former international champion who hasn't had a rematch. Kyle Fletcher is annoyed, realizing this means he's facing Kanushka Takeshka, but Don Collins says that he isn't the only one, as he will defend against Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada, another former champ who hasn't had a rematch. Kyle Fletcher is not thrilled about the ad challenge, but Okada insists the only thing that matters is that the international title stays in the family. With that, we head to ringside for our main event. Out first is Jack Perry as the fans sing along with his theme. This is followed by the arrival of John Moxley through the crowd, with the fans cheering and even chanting his name as we get things underway. So we get the main event of the evening. So we get the AEW Continental Challenge first cup round. Jungle Jack Perry versus Continental Champion John Moxley. This main event match was fantastic. This was a fantastic match for what it was. The two lock up and trade offense until John Moxley gets Jack Perry to the mat on a waist lock. Jack Perry gets to his feet, forcing John Moxley to the ropes for a break. They lock up again, and this time Jack Perry gets some shots in on the champ, who sends Jack Perry to the ropes. Jack Perry turns this around to send John Moxley to the outside. He goes to the ropes for a dive, but John Moxley intercepts with a forearm. He sends Jack Perry into the ring post before soaking in the crowd's approval. He heads back into the ring. As the referee begins to count, Jack Perry gets to his feet using the barricade, and John Moxley breaks the count by following Jack Perry. He sends Jack Perry towards the barricade, but is intercepted by the former Jungle Boy, only to be sent crashing to the timekeeper's area by the champ as we go to commercial break. Both men are back in the ring now, with John Moxley landing a body slam on a busted open Jack Perry for a near fall. He goes after the face some more, digging into it with his knuckles as the referee tries to intervene. John Moxley backs off from that, but gets right back into it as a knee strike before digging into the face yet again. Hammerlock of shorts on Jack Perry, who gets to the ropes for a break. The champ brings Jack Perry to his feet and then to the ropes, where he drops Jack Perry with a shoulder tackle and lands another knee strike. This time he takes Jack Perry to the corner, running him down about wanted to be in the main event before sending him to the ropes, only for Jack Perry to turn it around, sending the champ to the outside with a drop kick. He hits the ropes for a dive, sending John Moxley into the barricade and then back into the ring. He goes for a moonsault, then the cover, but John Moxley kicks out and goes for a bulldog choke. Jack Perry managed to escape, but gets dropped hard to the mat. As John Moxley gets a 2 count, he attacked Jack Perry again for another near fall. John Moxley lays in an onslaught of strikes on Jack Perry, and the referee checking if Jack Perry can defend himself. When it seems that isn't happening, the referee calls for John Moxley to step back. Step back, checking on his opponent once more, but Jack Perry isn't ready to give up. This rallies up the champ as Jack Perry gets to his feet, flipping John Moxley off. John Moxley lands some hard shots, but Jack Perry refuses to fall as he gets sent to the ropes. He fires back with a lariat. Jack Perry is back up and lands another on John Moxley and goes for a pile driver, but John Moxley counters. Jack Perry turns it into a sunset flip of shorts of a 2 count before transitioning to a snare trap on the champ. John Moxley struggles as he tries to break free of the hold. Jack Perry starts to cinch it back in, but John Moxley managed to counter out of it. And now he got Jack Perry trapped in a bulldog choke. Jack Perry fights to his feet, only to drop back down. The referee nearly calls for the bell, but Jack Perry actually tells him no, only to get caught in a tighter grip by the champ. Jack Perry is out cold now, and the referee calls for the bell. The winner by pinfall advancing to the next round, Jon Moxley. This main event match between Jack Perry and Jon Moxley, this was a fantastic match. And I enjoyed this match too. We get an update graphic on those advancing to the quarterfinals, with Jon Moxley celebrating as commentary hypes up the remaining first round matches for Collision, as well as the TBS title 4-way match for next Wednesday. Jack Perry slowly gets to his feet and gets a handshake from the champ in a show of sportsmanship as the AEW Dynamite comes to a close. But let me read you guys the quick results before I get my opinion while thinking about AEW Dynamite. For the number 2 spot in the Casino Gauntlet at AEW All In London, MJF defeated Nick Wayne and Speedball Mike Bailey. That first match was fantastic, but Speedball should have won. AEW Continental Challenge Cup first round, Jay White defeated David Finlay. I'm glad Jay White won. TNT Champion match. The Jet Kevin Knight defeated Chris Jericho, which is Kevin Knight did retain the TNT Champion, but Chris Jericho should have won. But Don Callis should have been banned from ringside. Alright, Chris Stanley defeated Via Van. That was a squash match. TBS Championship, Maya World and C-Mill Mexican National Women's Champion Thunder Rosa defeated C-Mill Champion Thunder Rosa defeated C-Mill World Women's Champion Press Up on Hikaru Shida. That was a fun tag team match for what it was. And AEW Continental Challenge Cup first round, Continental Champion Jon Moxley defeated Jungle Jack Perry in a fantastic main event match. And AEW Dynamite goes off the air. Alright, let me get my spin what I think about AEW Dynamite. Now, AEW Dynamite, I thought it was a good show for what it was, and I give that show a 7.5 out of 10. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in to my AEW Dynamite review on highlights. So make sure you guys please watch the entire video from all the way from the beginning towards the end. If you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more every week wrestling content I do on the channel. Go check out my WWE NXT review on highlights, and go check out my WWE Raw review on highlights as well too. And go check out my my WWE SmackDown review on highlights. I also did on the channel as well too. But I want you guys to have a great night. Stay safe and always stay positive. And I'll see you guys tonight for my upcoming world premiere for my AEW Dynamite review on highlights at around 5 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. And I will see you guys tomorrow live on Twitch for some Fortnite Thursday. So tomorrow is Thursday, so I'll see you guys tomorrow live on Twitch for some Fortnite. But anyway, I want you guys to have a great night. Stay safe and always stay positive. Like the video, share the video with your friends and family so it goes out to the YouTube algorithm. And comment down below what you guys think of AEW Dynamite. And that's all I gotta say from here. I want you guys to have a great night. Stay safe and always stay positive. Kept your crew, kept your kings, kept your club. Bullet Squad, Too Sweet. I'm out of here. Gang. Mwah. Bang. Too Sweet. Gang.